Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcana. This video features the Uncanny X-Men number 281, cover dated October 1991. So this is a wraparound cover by Whilce Portacio and Art Thibert featuring the Goal team. So it is Jean Grey and Storm here, front and center, Colossus, Iceman, and Warren Worthington, Archangel. And they're taking on here on the cover a group of the classic X-Men antagonists, the Sentinels. And we have blaring on the cover, a mutant milestone, a new team is born, and desperate alliances. So this is a new team, the Goal team, sort of a soft reboot, relaunch of the title, but this time without Chris Claremont. So let's open this one up and have a look at our opening page. And the setting here is the Australian outback. So it is the Reavers town in the outback, formerly the headquarters of the X-Men when they were, after they were thought to have died in Dallas and after they evicted the Reavers. So the Reavers are back in charge. And they're spending their time drinking, and Cole thinks there's something big moving out in the midst of a sandstorm. Here it is here, peeping in through the doorway, and it turns out to be a team of Sentinels who are bent on destroying the Reavers. Now, of course, this is a bit of a twist from what the reader's expectations might be, because, of course, Sentinels are generally keyed to tracking and destroying mutants only. So why are they now going after the Reavers? Why are they targeting Donald Pierce? And so spectacular, action-packed two-page spread here by Portacio and Thibert, and this is our creative team here. Jim Lee and Whilce Portacio plot, John Byrne script. So John Byrne returning to the title, but this time only to script. He's not plotting. He's not doing the art. So he's just scripting Liam Portacio's pages. Art Thibert inks, Tom Orzechowski letterer, and Joe Rosas colorist. And Joe Rosas was also the colorist on Jim Lee's adjectiveless X-Men title, which launched this month, October 2, well, cover date October. And again, typically we see that Joe Rosas style of coloring delineating shapes with color. So delineating the sunset here with streaks of orange. I like the way that he did that in the era before computer coloring. So the Reavers take some damage there from the Sentinels, and then our scene shifts to New York City and the headquarters of the Hellfire Club in Manhattan. And what we have here is a trio of X-Men to begin with. Warren, Worthington, Storm, and Jean Grey. And then here we've got Bobby Drake and Colossus. And eagle-eyed readers will note that later on in X-Men number 5, in a double-page spread team meeting in X-Men number 5, we saw Jean and Storm wearing these dresses and the other X-Men in their suits. And this was in advance of their heading to the Hellfire Club. So that's a little bit of continuity there. So X-Men 1 to 5 pretty much takes place before this issue, continuity-wise. So a lot of detail here on this page from Portacio. Obviously had a bit of time to put together this book. There's 23 pages of interior art. And what it turns out is going on is Emma Frost, who is White Queen of the Hellfire Club, has invited the X-Men to, under the banner of a truce, to come to the club and discuss some attacks that have been going on her and members of the club. And her team of trainee mutants are the Hellions. And here they are here on the stairs. So we have a little encounter between various of these characters. Roulette here and Bobby Drake, a bit of flirting going on there. And then this character, Beef, and Colossus in a bit of kind of male macho rivalry happening between the two of them. So then Jean scans the room and focuses or picks up on something happening in the club, and it turns out to be Emma Frost throwing this character out the doors, the double doors here. And Emma says, "Welcome, X-Men. Doubtless you now begin to guess why I invited you here tonight." So a bit of a cliffhanger there. What could it be? But our scene switches to somewhere, a penthouse apartment far above the bustle of New York, so perhaps around Central Park area. And here we have Shinobi Shaw, who recently, in recent months, in X Factor number 67, killed his father, Sebastian Shaw, apparently. And then this new character here, seen for the first time, Trevor Fitzroy is his name. He's mysterious in this particular issue in terms of what his background is, but we'll discover a little bit more about him in subsequent issues of Uncanny X-Men. And Shinobi Shaw has invited Fitzroy here for a meeting, and it turns out they're part of a group called the Upstarts. It'll turn out that the Fenris twins are also part of that group, and they turn up, of course, in X-Men number 4 and 5. And here we see Shinobi Shaw's decadent lifestyle and quirks, as it was put at the time, where he seems to have a harem of both men and women massaging him here. And there's implications here that maybe older readers of the comic would have picked up on, and not so much the 10 and 12-year-olds picking it up in 1991. And it turns out that Shinobi Shaw has his own Sentinels that he has taken over from Shaw Industries, having killed his own father. But Trevor Fitzroy also has Sentinels under his control. And Shinobi Shaw notes, "Not a design I'm familiar with." So where do these Sentinels come from? As I said, in this particular issue, Fitzroy is a mystery figure. He's challenging Shinobi Shaw here, and Shaw here thinks of Fitzroy, who's going after Emma Frost. "Your hatred for the Frost woman is only too well known, Fitzroy. That is your greatest weakness. I do not let my feelings cloud my wisdom as you do." So we don't know anything about the background between Fitzroy and Emma Frost. That perhaps or perhaps not will become clear in time. And then we go back to the Hellfire Club. So this is a pretty packed page here in terms of what's going on. Fairly typical of Whilce Portacio's style. I don't think this is a successful rendition of a stairways up to the second floor. It doesn't really convince. It looks more flat than graduated. So not successful, that particular perspective there. And then we have Emma Frost psychically torturing her attacker in order to find out what her motivation was or who sent her. But Storm intervenes. "I said, enough, Frost. I would not deny you the right to defend yourself, but I draw the line at torture, especially when it threatens Jean Grey," because Jean is getting some psychic flashback there from Emma Frost's use of her telepathic power. And then this character, Bevatron, hits Storm from behind using his power, and then basically we have a brawl between the Hellions and between the X-Men. So that's what we see here. So we get Portacio having an opportunity to do some fight scenes. So the costumes obviously were induced. Remember, Nightcrawler had an image inducer, and it seems they might have been using them for their clothes, and now they're back in their X-Men costumes or uniforms. And let's continue. So we have Jean Grey intervening here to stop the fight, and then we have some parley, starting with Emma Frost here, who says, "It is not necessary that you know which of our membership has been assaulted. only the degree of damage which has been inflicted, the savagery of the attacks. The identity of our attackers is unknown, but their purpose is clear. And as I've said, if the Hellfire Club falls, can the X-Men be far behind? So this is a question of the enemy of my enemy being my friend, perhaps. So again, back to the truce, and then Trevor Fitzroy arrives in this futuristic, for the time anyway, armor, and he takes out this particular character here, Jetstream, I think, and grabs him by the neck. And this again is an interesting feature of Portacio's style. If you can see that there, the size of Fitzroy's hand or armored glove around Jetstream's thick neck, very Portacio, wonky anatomically speaking, but it looks good. It somehow works. We don't learn anything about this character, who she is in this particular issue, and then we switch back to Australia and the outback, and Donald Pierce is making his escape from the Sentinels, and he makes his way into his lab, where we have Lady Deathstrike, and also, as it turns out, Scylla, who's not here on this page yet, but we'll see her shortly. So Pierce begs Deathstrike to defend him from the Sentinels, who it turns out, and this is a feature of these new Sentinels, this new design, as Shinobi Shaw said, that they are rehabilitating. So when Deathstrike slashes off an arm with her adamantium claws, the Sentinel is able to draw lab equipment and fix itself, reattaching the severed arm. So this is a little bit like kind of the Terminator type vision for the Sentinels that was emerging back in Uncanny X-Men 246 and 247 in the meeting between Sebastian Shaw and Robert Kelly. Sentinels that could survive attacks and fix themselves. So we're seeing it here. So where do they come from? Well, Scylla makes her entry here. This is Scylla Markham, who was the pilot for Banshee, the charter pilot for Banshee and Forge on one of the Greek islands, and her plane was blown up, and then Donald Pierce came and made her an offer to recreate her as a cyborg, improve her, which she accepted. And the last time we saw her was in Uncanny X-Men 269, when Rogue materialized from the Siege Perilous into the Reavers town. So he was working on her then, but here now is her finished appearance. We don't really get a good look at her here, and she looks a little bit different when she turns up with Lady Deathstrike in subsequent Wolverine issues around this time, written by Larry Hama and drawn by Mark Silvestri. So there's pretty good storytelling on this page as Pierce makes his escape from the lab. He leaves Deathstrike and Scylla to their fate, but the Sentinels ignore them because he's their prime target. He makes his way out of the town, up the hill to where Gateway is. We haven't seen Gateway in a while either, I think since 269. And he orders Gateway to send him to whoever is behind the attack. I like the artwork on this page. I like the dry brush here that Thibert is using to ink Portacio. This is a nice looking page. Clear storytelling and interesting to look at as well. So Gateway obliges here. And if I continue, he opens a portal, which Pierce goes through, but he's followed by 3 of the Sentinel units that are ordered to pursue him through the portal at maximum speed until the portal closes. Then, of course, it's interesting that these Sentinels don't attack Gateway, even though Gateway is a mutant. So they really do have a very specific target. As they say here, they're returning to their launch point rather than taking out Gateway. So their focus is not on mutants, the extermination of mutants necessarily. Then we're back to New York City in the Hellfire Club, and the Fitzroy, who takes out another few of the Hellions, and then the X-Men and the remaining Hellions join forces in order to attack Fitzroy and defend themselves. So it starts to get a little bit confusing in terms of the storytelling here, and I think Portacio is getting rushed now at this point of the book. We can see here when he draws Storm in this particular panel, hitting Fitzroy with her weather powers, that he doesn't draw her cape here. So there's no sign of that cape whatsoever. And that definitely is a sign that he is rushing at this point. Then we have further tackling of Fitzroy. I like this shot of Colossus from behind with the back muscles and the muscles on the back of his thighs. It's pretty well done here. Very, very detailed inking by Thibert. And then suddenly, into the midst of this battle, emerges Donald Pierce at the Hellfire Club. And his arm is shot off. And basically there's this fraught encounter between Pierce and Frost. Pierce initially thinks it's her that has sent the Sentinels, but then he begins to figure out, no, it wasn't. And he's followed, of course, from behind by those 3 Sentinels that made it through the portal. And it seems like he's killed by them. Of course, it turns out in much later issues that he wasn't. And the Sentinels attack Emma Frost as well, knocking her out, and Empath says he can't feel her emotions, so he concludes that she's dead. It's pretty nice action scenes here by Portacio. The art is very dynamic. There's a lot happening on these pages. So now the X-Men have to deal with the Sentinels, not just Fitzroy anymore. And Fitzroy and his woman here kind of get forgotten as they look at the X-Men about to die, as he believes. So we have in the remaining pages the battle between the X-Men and the Hellions and these new Sentinels, the self-repairing ones. And here we have apparently the death of Taro. And here we have Jean Grey, who's been targeted by the Sentinels. And it looks like she's been blasted badly here. And 2 of them take her on. And she turns to them saying, "It can't end like this. One chance. If I only have the time." And does she? And what does she do? It seems like she's blasted by the Sentinels. So then Fitzroy concludes that the X-Men have been beaten, and it seems like he disappears because we don't hear any more from him. And then we have the aftermath where the X-Men are standing over Jean Grey's body, and then suddenly appears Senator Kelly, who seems to have been at the Hellfire Club that evening, and he asks, "What's the meaning of this? How dare you burst into a private club, endangering innocent lives?" But Storm softens his cough by saying to him, "See for yourself, Senator. While Archangel and I allowed our focus to be diverted to the single Sentinel attacking Colossus, the other 2 murdered our companion." And Colossus says, "Speak to us not of payment, Senator Kelly. Tonight the X-Men have paid in the most precious coin of all." So apparently Jean is dead. And this seems to recall Uncanny X-Men 247, in which Senator Kelly's wife, Sharon, was killed by a Master Mold Sentinel. So there's some kind of mirroring bookending going on here, but I don't think it's quite coming out in the script. If I had to guess, I would say John Byrne hadn't read 246 and 247, and so he doesn't get what's going on here in the art. His scripting doesn't seem to be in tune with what Lee and Portacio seem to want to be communicating here with that reference back, the parallel to Uncanny X-Men 246 and 247. And some of that may be down to the speed with which they had to turn to Byrne to do this job. after Claremont quit in the middle of 279, because it was Claremont who was slated originally to script this book. So I do hope that you enjoyed this flip through and review of Uncanny X-Men 281. Let me just leave it here on the wraparound cover for you to admire. If you enjoyed the video, please like it on YouTube, and if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content like this.